We're going to create a Coca-Cola can using a reference file that we'll get from online, an image plane, and then our Revolve tool, and we'll finish up with a preliminary Photoshop texture UV map that can be opened up and then edited in Photoshop. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start in my front view. In my front view, I'm going to hold down the space bar, I'm going to choose Create, and I'm going to go down to Free Image Plane. And you'll see a green wireframe box created in your viewport. I'm going to go to my perspective view, and I'm going to go to the attributes for that green box. So I can hit Control A, or I can click on the tab that appears on the right-hand side of the interface. You'll notice that when you go to the attributes, that yellow speaker that you are accustomed to from importing texture maps to your node also appears in this feature. I'm simply going to click on the yellow folder. I'm going to go out and get my reference art. And you'll notice that the image plane has changed to the scale proportion of the art that was imported. I'm going to go to my front view once again. And I'm going to move my template up so the bottom of the can is against my x-axis, like so. Once I've done that, I'm going to go to my channels window. And with that template selected, I will click on the last icon of my channels window, my layers window at the bottom of the channels window. And when I click on that, it adds a new blank layer on which this has been put, which means I can change the visibility of it. And I can lock it, clicking and getting the R. And before I actually lock it down, I'm going to change the alpha channel. Now, I'm going to go back to my attributes, and you'll see the alpha gain is default setting of 1. I'm going to make that 0.5. It simply gives it a bit of translucence, which can be helpful in the modeling process. Now, I'll probably move this away from the center of my viewport. And then I'm going to go to my layers window, and I'm going to lock that in place. When I deselect, I can no longer select that. Now I want to use my CV curve tool, and I'm going to go back to my front view once again. I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to go to Curves Tool, CV Curve Tool. I'm going to set it for 1. Now with the CV Curve Tool, it's always best to add more points than you think you really are going to need. We can always add edits using the Insert Edgeloop tool afterwards. So it really is not anything too critical as far as the count and placement of these. And up at the top, I need to take into consideration the metal lip that keeps the top of the can on. So, and then I'm going to come across an end against the y-axis where the top of the can will be eventually. I'll hit return, I'll save, I'm going to go to surfaces, I'm going to revolve, and I'm going to make sure I hit edit reset. I want it on the y-axis, and I want it to be polygons. And I'm going to use control points. What that means is wherever these points are that I placed, it's going to revolve and represent that with polygon faces, meaning that we will have a minimal of polygon faces, which is something we always consider because of the CPU usage, as well as what might be needed in a game environment. So I'm simply going to click on Apply, close out my Revolve menu. I'm going to go to my perspective view. And you can see the basic shape that we have created. Now, if I wanted to preview this, as it might be once it's been smooth, I could hit my proxy, which is 3, and there is what my can would look like. Now, there are points at which it's falling apart. This is not the way a can would curve up to meet the lip. So I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to get my Edgeloop tool. And if I didn't have my Edgeloop tool, I could hold Control-Shift, and I could go to Mesh Tools and click on Insert Edgeloop. It'll be this 4-grid box with an orange dotted line through it. Now I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to start to put in curves to maintain the integrity of these shapes. And as I do this, the closer that the introduced line is to the original, the more it's going to hold the integrity of the shape. So I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard, and I can see I've pretty much got what I want right there. So I'll go ahead and go back to my geometry 1, so I see the geometry as it is. And I'm going to check out the bottom. Now the bottom looks pretty good. I'm going to hit 3 and see what I get. All right, so that's pretty good. All right, so now I'll go back to my object mode. And I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard. Now, what I need to do is, more often than not, with the Revolve tool, you may have an opening at the very top here. So I'm going to add a tool to my toolbar, and I'm going to merge to center these vertices. So, once again, Control-Shift, and then I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to click on the icon for Merge to Center. And it appears as this orange circle with some lines through it. I'm going to right-click, choose Vertex. Now I don't want to select any errant vertices on any other part of my can, so I'm going to hit 4 on the keyboard, and I'm going to make sure that when I select those, they are the only ones I select. Now I'll click on that tool. Same thing is going to happen at the bottom, so I'll need to merge those as well. So I'm going to select them and either click on the icon once again or hit G. And then I'm going to save, hit continue, hit 5, and back to my object mode. Now I've made a number of edits. I'm pretty good with the shape of this, so I'm going to click on Delete by Type History.